Last night, former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said it would have helped to have armed Syrian rebels 2 years ago, which was a recommendation made to the President by a good number of his national security advisors. Do you agree with that, and does the President have any regrets not doing that 2 years ago?
We've been really clear, Major, about the challenge here. The challenge of vetting elements of the Syrian opposition is difficult work. And the concern that the President had, particularly early on, before these individuals could be vetted by national security professionals and some of our partners that have relationships in this part of the world, is that our weapons and training could fall into the hands of individuals who don't share our goals and who don't share our interests and don't share the values of the United States of America. So what we have been engaged in is a longer-term effort to determine who are the Syrian opposition fighters that are fighting in Syria for their country. And that are fighting for the right reasons, for the reasons that would promote the kind of inclusive government that the people of Syria would like to have. Over the course of the last 3 years, we've made tremendous progress in learning about these individuals. This is not foolproof work here, but we've made progress, we've made strides in partnering with individuals and with elements of the Syrian opposition. And those are the elements that after 3 years of work in vetting and building relationships with them, that we feel like we can ramp up our training and assistance to them in a way that will counter the advance of ISIL in Syria.
Looking back on it, I understand that. We've discussed this before. What would have been worse? ISIL, which we have now, which requires an enormous amount of work militarily and diplomatically to assemble this coalition, self-financing, heading into America. What would have been worse? That which we have now, or a few weapons given 2 years ago leaking into different hands? I mean, well, I know it's hard to imagine that in all of its complexity, but you have something that is a legitimate threat to the region, possibly the United States, that's here now, that might have been stopped or slowed, not according to me, but according to former Defense Secretary that worked for this President, and many who advised him at the time. What would have been worse?
Well, Major, I think the one element of your question that I want to raise is that I don't think that even Secretary Panetta would suggest that a few weapons would have dramatically altered the outcome here. I think what would have been required...
Those would have leaked out because they would have been given to something would have been thoroughly vetted, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I think the concern is that a significant investment of time and hardware would have been required with the hope, again, not the conclusion, but with the hope that it could alter the outcome. So we're not in a situation where we know for sure that providing additional weapons would have solved the problem. In fact, there is the significant concern that many people hold that providing a large chunk of weapons early on to a group of Syrians that were not thoroughly vetted would actually have done more harm than good. So the President and his national security team are confident that in the midst of dealing with these very complicated set of variables, that at each turn a decision was made that recognized the centrality of American security as they were implemented.